Hey everyone, welcome back to Twinkle Tunes and Lighting. Today we're going to learn one of the most essential parts of our community of electricians, of hobbyists. Today we're going to learn how to solder, or maybe improve our soldering skills, or maybe just watch a guy do his best trying to solder and then comment down below and say, well, I would do that a little bit different. That guy doesn't know what he's doing. Anything like that. Hey, I'm learning too as we're going here, all right? A few years ago, I didn't know anything about soldering. Today, I would say I know a little bit, but I'm sure I can always learn from you guys in the comments below. We're going to learn how to solder. I'm going to teach you a couple different techniques, and we're going to look at some solder sleeves. That's highly controversial. And we're also going to look at doing some heat shrink over some connectors. So stick around, cue the 90s bump. Let's go. Here's some tools you will need for some traditional soldering. First, a soldering iron. So you have some of these, some of those, a couple of those. The one I use is the Weller 40-watt digital soldering station. You'll need some rosin core solder, 60-40 and lead-free if you can find it. Like these, those, some over there. I use Kester solder. I think it's the best, it works well, and that's what everybody else uses. You'll need a sponge or brass coil to clean the solder tip. Mine came with my kit, so if you buy the kit, you get the whole thing. It's nice. If you're looking for a super cheap kit, get one on Amazon or go down to Harbor Freight and get one of those. They're perfect. Next thing you need is helping hands, like this one or that one or this one over there, some of those. So I picked mine up off of Amazon. This is what mine looks like. This is the one I'm gonna use. It's got a magnetic base, 4 arms, a light, got all the essentials you need. Pretty cheap. If you're gonna be soldering any type of boards or any type of panels, you're gonna want a solder pump or some braid to remove some of the old solder. I use a Lesno solder sucker. It doesn't matter, they're all the same. Maybe they're not the same. Some are a little bit better than others. I don't know. This one works for me. You're gonna need wire strippers like this one, that one over there, one down there, one in the middle. I use the one here. I use a set of Klein strippers. I've also got a set of, what do I got here? This one says commercial electric. Get a nice pair. This is the only thing I'd say to not buy from Harbor Freight. Don't go cheap and get those crappy ones. Don't do that. Get a nice pair of wire strippers. You'll thank me in the end. Make sure you get flux. Flux looks like this. That one. There's one over there. That one in the middle. There you go. Flux is flux. I don't know the difference in flux. Someone could probably post down below, tell me what the difference of the flux is. I think all flux is the same. I go and get wire flux. It's flux. You need it. It's just gonna suck in the solder. It's gonna make your connections more durable. They're gonna make them harder. They're gonna make them. It's gonna make it better. Just get some flux. Get a flux. And last but not least, always wear safety glasses. I know half of us don't. You probably won't. Wear safety glasses because as that solder. As you start soldering, what is that called? Soldering? As you start soldering the soldering, I guess. As you start soldering the soldering, that core inside, it'll pop, kind of shoots off little things. If you got some crappy solder, if you got good solder, it won't. But all it takes is one little hot right in the eye and it's over, Johnny. Okay? Get some glasses. It's fine. They're clear. You can see through them. Also, I'm going to show you a little bit later. You can use solder sleeves. And we're also going to use some heat shrink as well. Same thing. Get some solder sleeves off of Amazon. Get some heat shrink off of Harbor Freight, Amazon, whatever you want to do. But we're going to use some solder sleeves and we're also going to use some heat shrink. I'll show you the technique of that as well. All right. Now let's do a quick safety check. Number one, the soldering iron is hot. Okay. Look at these people here. See this person and that person. That person. They're not using it right. They're grabbing the iron. Those are not good pictures. Okay, we don't want to do that. Okay, grab your iron towards the back where the handle is. You won't burn yourself. Okay, it's hot. It's like 690 degrees. It's like the sun. I don't know how hot the sun is. It's pretty hot. It's pretty hot. It's hot. Just don't touch it. Don't touch the hot part. Okay, hand on the handle and don't touch hot part. When you are done soldering, put it back in the stand. Okay, don't lay it on the table. You lay it on the table, it's gonna burn. It's gonna melt. It's gonna do something. Solder it. Clean it, put it back in stand. Okay, super simple. Solder, clean it, back in stand. If you follow those things, it's always going to be great. Okay, don't lay it on the table. Don't think that, oh, I'm just gonna real quick and then I'll come back to it. You're not going to come back to it. Okay, burn your house down. Not good. We don't want to do that. okay? Now, I've never used one. I just started using one this year when I've been soldering, okay? It's called a fume extractor, okay? They look like this, one like this. There's a lot. There's all these. There's some. They range from like $20 to like $2,000. Like these are like the mega fume extractors, okay? I bought one on Amazon. I think it was like 20 bucks, 30 bucks. But basically, if you're using lead core solder or any kind of smoke, you're probably not supposed to breathe smoke in, you know, unless you're a smoker, I guess. But I don't know. Anyway, as the fumes come up, you don't want to breathe those toxic fumes in. And what this fume extractor does is it sucks the solder fumes through like a little charcoal filter. Filters all that out, puts a nice clean air out the backside, okay? Just helps with the smell, helps with all that, helps you keep clean. You're not gonna die from breathing a little bit of solder in. I wouldn't do it though. I just started doing it. I've never done it until this year, so give it a whirl, see what happens. And last but not least, when you're done soldering, wash your hands, okay? It's lead, it's copper, it's from all parts of the world. You don't know who made it or what it is. Just wash your hands, okay? So don't solder and then have a cheeseburger, or don't solder and finish your pizza. That's gross. Don't do that. That's gross. Okay, just don't do that. Okay, so solder. When you're done soldering, go wash your hands and then go eat pizza. I guess that's what I would do. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna do that. Now, let's get ready to solder. Here's a few things that we want to avoid. Number one, it's called a cold solder, okay? Once when you hit the solder, you got to give it time to get in between the wires and get into that joint and actually make a good connection. We're not painting with the solder, okay? We want to solder, we want to suck into both whatever you're soldering to, the two cables, the cable to panel, the component to the board, okay? Let it get in there and let it solder to that joint, okay? We're making a connection here, okay? We're not painting it, okay? So we want to make sure it's good kind of. If you don't do that, it's called a cold solder. It means the solder is just laying on top of that. It hasn't done nothing. You're not going to get a good contact. It's going to fall apart. It's going to fail. We don't want to do that, okay? So no cold solder joints. All right, second thing. I don't know if I said first on the what's first? B. Let's go to B. I don't know, second. Second thing, don't use too much solder. I know I just said don't use, a lot. Use a little, but don't use too much. If you just keep dumping solder and more solder and more solder, it's just gonna bubble up and it's gonna look yucky, and we don't want, that's too much. We don't want to use too much solder. Use just enough to do the job, and that's it. Okay, once when you see the solder suck into the cable or suck into your project, that's all you need. So don't just keep dumping solder into there. It's bad. We don't want to do that. Okay, that comes to number 4, or letter C or D. Comes in the next one. Don't use too little solder. You're not just gonna put them together and just put a little dab in it, call it good. We don't want to do that, okay? Don't use too little, don't use too much. Don't use too little, don't use too much. Use just right. It's like the Goldilocks of electrical stuff, okay? It's too hot, it's too cold, it's just right. We want the one in the middle. That's what we're doing, okay? So if you don't think you put enough solder on there, put more. And then if you put too much, you're like, oh man, I gotta take some off or I gotta redo the project, okay? So let's just use just the right amount. Okay, the second thing, when you're using your helping hands, it holds whatever you're soldering and holds it still. If you think that you're gonna hold a cable and solder and do all that together, it's not gonna happen. I have a little bit of the shakes. You'll probably see it in the video. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to figure it out. That's okay. I got a little bit of shakes. And if you're soldering, as soon as that solder takes and you let go and you're moving it, and it's not gonna solder, it's not gonna do real well. It'll make contact, but it's not what we want. We want a good product here. I mean, this is gonna last for I don't know, eons and eons, and our pioneers and later people are gonna look at that like, man, that guy knew how to solder. But don't be the guy that's like, who soldered this? He didn't know. We don't want to be that guy, okay? Make sure you're not moving it. Use your helping hands, solder it, it's gonna look great. And here's another great tip. When we're using the heat shrink, put the heat shrink on first. Put it on first. As soon as you grab your cable, put heat shrink on, because you're gonna go through, you're gonna solder your connections, you're gonna make them all nice, and they're gonna be great, and they're gonna be nice and shiny, and you're gonna look down and you're going, I didn't put any heat shrink on. And guess what? Now we gotta cut it all off, or we gotta desolder it all, or we gotta wire, we gotta pump it all out. You gotta do all that stuff to restart all over again. Put your heat shrink on, okay? So, strip your wires, heat shrink goes on immediately, and then go back, okay? So, heat shrink, that way you're not going back and, saying the bad words because you forgot to put it on there. Don't do that. Once when you're done soldering your component or soldering your wire, you're gonna take your solder and you're going to clean the tip, okay? Clean it, put it in the brass or put it on the sponge, and you're gonna get all that solder crud off of there, so you got a nice clean tip, and then hang up your solder gun. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. Between those two things, you gotta clean it. Always clean it. You don't want to have a bunch of boogers on the end of your solder. That's no good. We don't want all that stuff on there. We want a nice clean tip so we got good connection. Okay, so clean your solder. Always have a good clean solder tip. All right, we're gonna do 2 wires together real quick. Got a couple of, looks like 16 gauge wire here. Let's see if we can make magic out of this. Now, when you grab your wire, you want to flatten it out so you can get all those good wires together in there. Put some flux on it. So, kind of dip it in our flux here, dip it in our flux here. Got flux on both ends here. And just try to get them to kind of hang out right there. Look at that. Okay, so we kind of braided those together here. Now we're gonna twist. Get these twisted together. No errant wires hanging out. Okay, and now we're gonna move it over. Stick this in our helping hands. Okay, now the big thing is we want to go from the bottom of it, heat it up. Now this is gonna take a little bit because these are thicker wires. Once we get it heated up, you're gonna start feeding that wire, feeding that solder down in there. Yummy. Clean our tip. Tip's nice shiny. Hang up our solder. The right size heat shrink on here. Right over the top here. Now we got our heat shrink on. It's our next step. That's right. We gotta kind of put our heat shrink on now. So let's do that. Let's pull up our old heat gun here. Got this temperature set to 600 degrees. And there you have it. There is one perfectly soldered together cable. Not pulling that apart. Perfect. Now you're saying to yourself, he did that on a nice big wire. I wonder if he can do that on any of the smaller wires. No, it's a great idea. Let's take a look. Let's take these wires for example. This is on a Seed Pixels. See if we can make it happen with one of these. 3. Let's grab our flux. Let's go ahead and flux it now. Yerp. Okay, got our flux on here. Just gonna have it sit here for now until we're ready for it. Get our Reiwu connector. Here's our male connector. I'll put a Reiwu on it. That's what I run on my shows. Now, I've found that if you put the heat shrink on now, and then strip it, it's way much more gooder and easier. So, piece of heat shrink 1. Okay, great. So, got our longer heat shrink on there. Got our tails back pretty far. Let's see what happens here. So let's strip these back about the same distance we did those other ones. Go flux. Oh, I got crap in my flux. Oh well. I hate when I get crap in my flux. And then we're gonna go middle to middle because that's my data. And then we're gonna go ground to ground over here. Got it? Okay, good. Here we go. So first things first. Okay, when I go to put this in my helping hands, I'm continuing to hold on to that tail. I don't want to let that go. And put one there. Now, look at that. No movement. So good right now. Take your solder. Okay. Let's get some solder on our tip here. Okay. Clean it off. Look at that. Nice and shiny tip. We're going to go under it. Push up. Let's just let that solder just get right in there. Money. Money. Want a close up? Let's take a look. So good. There's one. Remember, underneath, a little bit of pressure and boom. That's it. Nice and silver. Looks pretty. Clean our tip. Hang it up. Fray that out there a little bit. Let's get this going. Push that into there. Let's twist. Oh, that looks real nice. Turn our fan. Clean our tip. There you go, nice and silver. Look at that. Don't paint it. Once it looks good, leave it alone. Turn off our fan. Let's slide our heat shrink over. Make sure it's covering everything. Nice and pretty. Looks good. Let's send it. Take a look at our work here. It's good. Sealed on the end. Nothing's protruding. This is perfect. Great looking cable. And just like that, it works. Perfect. So there you have it. Let's do some solder sleeves. I know people that don't like the solder sleeves, you can look away now, but we're gonna do them. Let's take all our hard work we just did. We're gonna cut it off. Be done with it. It's a little bit quicker, so same thing. We're gonna peel this back. So we got enough wire we're gonna work with here. I do this a little bit different than you guys may have seen, but it works for me. And if you don't like it, you can do it a different way. But this is what I think works the best when working with solder sleeves. I've never had one fail, never had one melt, never had one, anything like that. They've been great. These are my quick fixes. I think anything for this gauge and above, this is what I'm using as solder sleeves. And if I don't have to get in super intricate into some of my connectors, solder sleeves it is. Okay, here's my connector, male connector, take the solder sleeve. Now, these solder sleeves have a smaller opening and a larger opening. I like to take the large opening in the way that I'm going to slide the solder sleeve on. Okay, so take the small opening. I'm gonna go down to my connector side here. Let's take our flux. A little bit of flux on the end of that one. Take our flux here. A little flux on the end of these. Now here we go. I'm going to do mine like this. I know, I told you it's gonna be controversial, and you're going, hey, wait, can't do that. Well, I am. So now I've got them all like this. I'm gonna push that solder sleeve towards this side over here like this. Look at that, look at that. Make my solder sleeve right in the middle of that twist. Okay, I got that nice in the middle of the twist like that. It's time to put some heat to her. So I go to one side, heat shrink it closed. Okay, then travel to the other side, kind of heat shrink that side closed. I'm gonna go right to the middle. Boom, there it goes. Just released that pretty solder. Good, we're sealed on both ends. Let's kill our gun. Let's take a look at it. You can see that solder is shiny. Goes right along those cables. It's beautiful. Can't get any better than that. What's that, you ask? See if it works? Let's give it a test. There you go. Works. Super simple, super easy. That's how you do the solder sleeves. Just like that. All right, let's talk about soldering onto like a PCB board, something like this. This is a 5-volt transformer, okay? I come in one side, spits out 5-volt the other side. That's what we want. But the problem is there's no connectors on it. Got it hardwired onto there. In my hand, I have a connector. I want to put that on there so I can use that. So let's do it. So I got my board here. Make sure my orientation of my connector is going out. Let's flux it. Put it back in. Now, our goal here is we want to hit the ring and the pin at the same time and feed the solder. Okay? So, this is where you don't want to put too much, don't want to put too little. We just want to be just right. Call it Goldilocks. That's it. Boom. Nice and quick and easy. Let's hit this other one. Boom. That's it. See how quick that was? A couple seconds. It's on there. Let's take a look at our finished product. Super simple, super easy. And it's on there. Okay, that's it. I've only been doing this when I make this video. I've only been doing this about a couple years now. Okay, not a lot of soldering, but what I've learned and what I've done here, it works for me. If you have better suggestions or better ways of doing it, hey, let me know. Sometimes the old timers, they have a leg up on us and they're going, hey, back in my days, this is how I used to do it. And that's cool. I'd like to learn back in your days. You guys did know how to do it. Kind of like the forefathers of Soldering Nation. I don't know. You know, one nation under soldering, something like that. Okay, but if you guys have any suggestions, let me know. Also, if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe. Don't just be a lurker. Don't just click through the videos. Hit the subscribe button. It helps me out. And then hit the bell icon. The bell icon tells you when I drop more content. I just use like something like Gen Z would say, I've been dropping content, yo. So I know what videos to make or what to change in the next videos, because you guys are the ones that are watching them. I've already seen them, but you guys haven't seen them before. So let me know if you guys want me to make a different video, or say, hey, could you highlight a little bit more of this? Could you tell more jokes? Could you not tell any more jokes? Could you just be quiet and just build those cool controllers? It's up to you. You guys tell me, and that's what I'm gonna make. But like and subscribe, you know, that helps me a lot. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That's huge for my channel. I'm trying to make it grow, blossom into something beautiful. Something y'all can watch. And thanks so much for watching. And remember, keep those connections strong.